5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire. The only thing we have to fear is fear.
Mile 18.
This is Endurance Nation.
Hey there, welcome to the Endurance Nation podcast. My name is Patrick McCran and I'll be your host. Every week I break down a different topic on endurance sports, training, racing, strategy, using Endurance Nation's 4 key values of consistency, community, camaraderie, and competition. Being an endurance athlete is not easy. You're juggling many different things, including time, resources, money, travel, work, life. It gets stressful at times, but what we do inside Endurance Nation is break things down to their basic building blocks. Make sure that you can put them into practice, whether you're training or racing, to make you a fitter, faster, and smarter athlete. We've been doing this since 2007 and helped thousands of athletes just like you reach their own personal best and the finish line that they've been chasing for a very long time. We look forward to helping you here on this podcast, but you can also follow us online at endurancenation.us, or if you're looking for a specific topic, just Google Endurance Nation and the topic. I'm sure we've got something. Otherwise, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Endurance Nation.
Hey everyone, it's Patrick here with Matt from another episode of DudeGuy, episode number 9, episode where my hair goes out of control. Without a mountain background, I just need elevation on my hairline. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. You look like Wout Van McCran.
Well, Van McCran, the only thing that we would have in common is hair that stands up, and that is literally where the similarities end. I have been watching, thanks to you, which has dynamited my week a little bit. And also angered my wife. I'll tell you more about that in a second. The Netflix documentary, which is like Amaze. So the Tour Unchained. I'm watching it with English subtitles. So I get all the, because I just love all the languages. I just love hearing people say it's the hardest bike ride in the world, like in French. It sounds like, oh my God, it sounds really hard. And it's hard. Like in English, we would be like, we don't have words for it. So we would say it's really hard. Or we would say it's really hard and do stuff with our eyebrows. But like in other European languages, they've got like lots of words that make it sound like it's really hard. So anyway, that's my setting. But I don't watch TV. I don't know if folks at home know this. Like I just do not watch TV. Never talk to me about a TV show unless it happened like before 2010. Because I have no idea what's on television. TV does not excite me at all. And so it's like a workout. Like, why am I only going to work out for 40 minutes? If I'm going to work out, I'm going to work out for 3 hours. So I'll watch a movie, but I'm not going to watch a TV show. So the only TV show that we watch here in my house is Ted Lasso, because my wife and I both enjoy it. And like once a week we sit down, we're a little behind, no spoilers, please, and watch an episode. It's like our time together, and it's just something we get to chat about. But then the other night, I got done with work at 8:30, and I was like, oh, I think I could watch another episode of this Netflix thing that I stopped in the middle of. So I go turn on. So I walk in the TV room and get my stuff and I sit down. I was like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I was gonna watch this TV show. She's like, you're watching a TV show? What's happened to you? Like, you've changed. She was super mad that I have a TV show. I was like, I'm not hiding it from you. And then I also was like, it was Matt's idea. He told me about this TV show. She can't be mad. It's not me, it's Matt. It was Matt's idea. So thank you, Matt. And also, sorry.
The bus that ran over me. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Exactly. You might have felt that. You were like sleeping in Europe somewhere. And you're like, like disturbance in the force. Yeah. So sorry about that. We all do that. All guys do that. All guys are like, I saw my friend do this, whatever that is. Or DudeGuy. I saw DudeGuy do it. Maybe next time I'll blame DudeGuy. If I say it fast enough or say it in French, like, DudeGuy, then maybe she'll think it's an actual guy and not a made up name. But I am grateful for the show. It's like, my adrenaline is like pumping watching that show. They do a great job. It's amazing. So thank you. Have you watched like everything, or it's episodes, right? So you can't cheat.
That's my topic for this week. You totally stole all my thunder, but yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about was the Netflix thing.
Let's do it.
If you don't have Netflix, get Netflix. Watch the 8 episodes. It'll be $1.25 an episode. It's totally worth it if you're into bikes.
Yes.
And you already know what happened. Okay, so the reason why it's awesome is that you already know what happens on the tour. I don't care. But you get to see what happens in the bus. You get to see what happens in the team car. And you get fantastic, like, first-person GoPro footage of the actual peloton. And that's impressive of, like, how fast they're going, how close they are. You see it from a third-person perspective, but from, like, the motorcycle shooting it. But, like, when you see it from the handlebars, holy skills those guys have. Obviously, they're professional bike riders. But really, the languages are great. Like you said, the languages are great. The team directors, like, all have a different personality. And, like, you get to learn the personalities of each one of the team directors, and, like, big, well-financed teams versus not well-financed teams, guys that are, like, idealistic, guys that are, like, super competitive, guys that are trying to relive being a rider through their own rider. And then just the drama of who's the leader this week, and because who's crashed. And we had a plan, but now we have a new plan, and, like, trying to keep the sponsors happy. There's a ton of dynamics that's going on that is not just in the Phil Liggett of he's on the rivet, he's all over his machine. Yeah, this is really good stuff. It's like, I was really liking it.
Yeah. So let's put it this way. If you own a bike, and I don't mean like a bike that you had from college that still is somewhere like in your house, but if you actually ride a bike, you should watch it, because it takes cycling to another level. And I think as you get more and more into cycling, you learn more and more about how to ride. You go to different places, you meet different people, you learn new skills. There's this evolutionary process. And to me, watching this documentary is kind of like when my wife and I went to Kona for our honeymoon before I'd ever qualified. To just be there and see it, like, up front, and just not just see it, you can feel it. The energy and the passion. They've just done a great job of connecting the footage. So when they go back after the race and they've got an excerpt of one of the ride leaders being like, that was a tough stage, especially that one part. And they cut to the one part he's talking about, where there's this, it's like a crime scene happening on bicycles, like, with just people just crushing each other. And you're like, oh, that's right. Because in our minds, we digested it and moved on. And we're like, now we're talking to the person, but that person is reliving the experience. And the documentary starts to connect those pieces, I think, in a way that really brings to life the drama that unfolds on each stage, which is really a chapter of a story across 21 stages, which is 21 stories, which is effectively a year's worth of cycling energy and everything, but in 21 days, which is part of what makes the tour so compelling, is that it's so much happens. And this is a chance for you to peek inside and see it. It's just so worth it. And it just bonus points. It gets you totally motivated to ride your bike and to train, and brings to life some of the stuff that you experience. Like when you're riding or descending or climbing, you're like, oh yeah, here I am, I'm descending, and ooh, that guy's a little close, or oh, almost got that tree. And you're narrating it in your head. To know that, like, everybody does that. And even the pros do that. And it's there. That's part of what the documentary brought to life for me is, wow, I don't have an epic France countryside in my recap of my ride or my race, but I lived that experience. And to be able to, like, tap into that by turning on Netflix, so worth it. Alternatively, if you don't have Netflix, I'll tell you this, because we logged in the other day to Netflix and it was all in Spanish, that apparently people can hack your Netflix and then just basically they resell your subscription to someone else, and they can just log in and change everything to them. So I realized something was up when I logged into Netflix, and I was El Patrick and not Patrick. At least they kept me there. I think they were like, if we keep the names, maybe they won't change the account password. I still did, because I'm evil like that. El Patrick is not any nicer than the Patrick here in American. So anyway, all right. So yes, thank you for that hat tip. We're all in. And also, actually, I was on a call this week and was reminded that actually RAM is happening right now, which I can't believe we dropped the ball on talking about the race across America, but that is happening now. I've not been following it at all. And I'm only bringing it up because I wanted to talk about this new website that I found this person told me about called the Escape Collective. Have you heard of the Escape Collective?
No, I haven't. Should I Google it right now?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes. Not from Europe. I'm sure you'd have to accept 97 banners. You'll never get there. We'll still be talking by the time you get to the website. Anyway, so the Escape Collective is essentially all the people who used to work at cyclingtips.com as journalists and then got fired because Cycling Tips was like, we're not going to do journalism anymore. So they went off and started what probably was like their own Substack, and now they're turning that into a brand and a newsletter. But you can find them at Escape Cycling on Twitter and escapecollective.com, where you can sign up for any emails and updates. But it's like a more private version of what, say, Bellow News is. Now, Bellow News is all outside online and trying to get me to subscribe to stuff and cutting off articles and doing all that awesomeness, which may work in a teenage dating relationship, but doesn't work when I just want to read an article about the Tour de France. You can't tell me no this time, or I only get half, and then come on. What's the story here? Yeah, Escape Collective. Check it out. Like, I'm excited to see what they're building there, and I love supporting up and coming journalists, especially in a sport that I love. So awesome. All right. So we're going to keep talking about bikes. We're going to talk about mountain biking. For those of you who have not been paying attention or have not heard me say the thing that I never said to you is that this year is cycling year for me. And part of that progression is getting ready for Leadville in August, and Steamboat as well. They're a week apart this year, so doing this double. So I've been training a lot. If you've been following my Strava or checking things out, and I have my first mountain bike race next weekend in Minnesota. It's the Lutsen 99, and it's been a well-run race. It's a feeder for Leadville. It's been for years. My hope in going there is that by putting up a time, this is what people do. By putting up a time, much like you qualify for Boston, you could change your corral. Right. So if I could, I'm like a random entry, so I'm not at the front. So if I can get a time that's faster, I could potentially move up a corral or two, which should make my life much easier in Leadville. Plus, who doesn't love racing for privileges? Like, I think we should do that more often. People are like, oh, you want to be at the front of the supermarket line? Let's run from the milk aisle, from the end by the milk, all the way down the other end to the eggs. Whoever gets there first gets to go to the front of the line. Like, I'm all about that. We should just have races and competitions for all those things. Yeah, so that's my plan. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, exactly. My grocery store would not look like a typical grocery store. There'd be like timing mats and like bells that go off and whistles, like woo. Anyway, I say that now and like I would lose every time. But you were going to ask me about my taper. What was going on? You were kind of stalking me on Strava, it seems.
I was stalking you on Strava. So we were talking about getting you ready to do mountain biking, and we came up with a plan where you want to pack your intensity in during the middle of the week and then do a longer ride and make sure you had enough recovery. And I thought that was going really well. And then we were on a pretty good rhythm. And then the weather got really good in Rhode Island. And you're like, hey, I can ride my bike outside. Hey, I can ride my bike outside. Hey, I can ride my bike outside. And like, you just kept going and riding your bike longer and longer. I'm like, man, you've nailed that long ride. You got that long ride nailed. You're good. And so I just saw you post their last 4-hour ride. And I was like, how am I going to talk to Patrick about his taper going into this mountain bike race? Because he could be rested going into the mountain bike race. So
what is this? If I'm rested, then I have no excuses. Okay, so here's the deal. So yes, I did want to ride outside. And so last week I did my epic long ride because I was like, I need to get a long ride outside on a bike that has me off-road and is uncomfortable and whatever. So I was like, I wanted to do something big like that to feel good about that. So I did do that one. This week, today is nice here. You can see the sun, but this weekend's going to be miserable. So I'm like, I'm not going to want to get outside this weekend and do anything. And so I was like, I better get the ride in yesterday when I had time in the morning. I blocked out a few hours. I will say, speaking of taper, I do want to talk about it because I'm definitely tired. Like, the more tired I get, the more my hair stands up, and I actually don't have much hair on my head. So as you can tell, I'm super tired. This is like my warning light for fatigue. So I did 4.5 hours yesterday, and I did it like just easy, like sitting up, looking around, not pushing, etc. But I got home last night and my week's been stressful. I'm like, man, I'm just beat down. So I'm taking today easy. I'm just going to mow my lawn. So I've got effectively 7 days plus one. By the time people hear this, it'll already happen. But I've got 7 days. You guys can tune in to see my results and see how I did to get to put the finishing touches on. And I'm totally open to thoughts or recommendations about this, aside from Patrick, don't touch a bicycle and stop eating and just sleep until next week. If that's the guidance, I will totally do that. Talk to me.
Yeah. So your travel day is Friday, right? So you'll be on the plane on Friday, right? Yes. So we backwards plan and then you race on Saturday, right?
Yes.
So, all right. So what has been Patrick's best practices going into, you've tapered for thousands of races. So what are some of your best practices going into some of those races for tapers? What does Patrick should do? Not Patrick could do. So you've done this a bunch of times. So, you're going to travel. So you're traveling on Friday. So that's out. So really we're talking about Thursday through Sunday, backwards planning, right?
100%.
You'll probably have some runs in there, right? You probably have a little bit of running in there and stuff like that to fit in. Like maybe?
Yeah, I've got a run problem. Sure. Yeah. I've got a workout problem. Yes. So best practices. In the past, my best races have been after I rest a little bit on the earlier side and then do some training into the race. So that I don't do well like training and then say stopping on Wednesday and not really doing anything until race day and then being like, now do all the things. I'm a long type of warm up kind of person. And so my intent from here was to say, okay, I did this ride yesterday. I'm actually going to take it easy for a day or two in here to do some absorption and then figure out what I can do sharpening or maintenance or stay sane. I do need some stay sane stuff heading into the race. And so that's been my macro level secret. The things that I struggle with are just, even when I don't do big workouts, I just fill it with lots of stuff. Like I don't do well sitting down. These episodes are some of the longest periods of time that I sit still outside of Ted Lasso or a Netflix documentary. I just can't sit still. And so I will be cleaning something, fixing something, doing an errand, or building something. Like you saw the dining room table and the thing. My wife wants to hang like an awning over the deck. So I've got like poles and hardware and a friggin' sail that I gotta try and install this weekend. So I also do a lot of fatiguing stuff. So I guess pinky promise here on air that I will avoid doing. I'm not going to go longer than 3 hours between now and race day for sure. But I'd be curious to know from you in terms of, one of the things that we talked about was, hey, off-road racing, gravel or mountain bike, requires like surges, like hard surges of energy, and then the ability to continue riding and recovering in that process. So you got to get over a bump or a hill. In the case of Lutsen, it's got like a 2 mile, you descend down 2 miles down from the finish, which is a climb at the end, to the main road. You ride on the main road for 2 miles, you take a left, and then you've got effectively a 40-minute or 45-minute road effort that is a climb of different. It's got 12 minutes at the first part, which is like a 12-minute segment, and then ups and downs as it continues to stair step up. That's what really divides the field. So I've got a 40-minute to 45-minute threshold level effort on a mountain bike that I've never ridden before to stay with the lead pack. And so the challenges, so one is taper. The other side is execution. And I'm doing these fondos that I've been riding in. I tend to stay at the back. Like I'm not mixing it up at the front. I'm like, oh, those are really crazy people. I'll just ride and then eventually things will get sorted out, which they do. But in a bike race, there's a lot of drafting that happens. And if you're not near the front, then you're not going to get that win. Yeah. So I guess maybe there's a taper strategy for off-road racing, if you could sort of put that in a bottle quickly from you. And then also on the race execution side, as someone who's coming from a long course triathlon background, like how would you recommend that I approach tactically the beginning? Like I can, as everybody who follows me on Strava knows, I can ride my bike for 10 hours. Like just point it that way, 10 hours. Like I won't stop. I don't even need to eat. Who needs to pee? Like I'll just keep going. So that's not an issue. The issue is, how do I put myself in a position to be successful in a race that has those distinguishing elements, because it's a bike race and not just a swim bike run race? Can we do that?
So I think you're super fit and can ride the distance. It'll be measuring your effort out across the day. So when I look at the course, it has large chunks of it are road and then large chunks of it are trail. So since you don't have a lot of off-road experience, I would say you want to make some money on the road sections.
Okay.
But the first road section, which is this climb out of town that you were talking about, it's a relatively steep climb and it's on the road. So you can do relatively well on that part of the course. The trouble is that we don't want to blow you up because you still have probably 5 or 6 hours of riding. Yeah, we don't want to be going threshold up that thing. But certainly we want to ride high end of the tempo for that first climb, and then get through the trail section. And then when you get to the next road chunk, be able to do that repeatability that we talked about, of being able to like, hey, let's put down an effort during the road. And then you got the trail section where you do your best. And then whenever we get to the road, you're making money. One, you're eating, and then two, you're making money. You're riding with another team member who has done this course a couple different times. And then there's differences between riding single track and versus riding fire road, right? So some of the fire road, you may be able to eat and get your hands off the handlebars and stuff like that versus a single track stuff. So I think, okay, so for race, I guess I would talk to with roads, obviously. You've ridden it more times than I have, but one strategy would be for you to make a lot of money on the road when you can, and being able to so figure out what that effort is that you think you can repeat across the day and start with that. And then, so backwards planning, if you want to be able to do that and you want your body to experience that, like you said, your best practice is for you to be able to put those efforts in earlier in the week. The two things I think that you would want to practice and then just space them out would be that sustained tempo of being able to feel this is where my heart rate's at, this is where my power's at, this is where my breathing is at, find that magic place for you. Or, okay, this is what it should feel like. And then also the punchy effort. If you have to zoom in on the course, like it's when it's up and down, there's the micro, there's what the ride GPS will show you it's a 7% grade, but it's when you get out there, it'll be 9 and then 6 and then 10 and then 5. I think doing some short bursty kind of work, I don't think you need to do like a crush yourself doing it, but you need to get that punchy factor into the into the week. So I think if those are the two workouts, if we have Sunday through Thursday to work with, it's like a Monday, Wednesday or something, like some combination of that. You space those out of a tempo effort that like, hey, I'm going to do this. Maybe that's your 2-hour day where you get some tempo efforts in there that 8 minutes or 10 minutes a chunk. You spread those out across a 2-hour ride, doing zone 2 in between those. And then you do some punchy work. So you have both those systems activated before you show up to the race. What do you think of that?
All right. Love it. I love that. Sounds good to me. I definitely have. The good thing is that I have been correlating, and this is good advice for the folks at home, correlating like the effort, the watts and the heart rate, because I had a fitness bump from earlier in the season. I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know how to trust that number. So I've been really zoning in on the heart rate side of things as well. And I think that's a good default number for me to use from a sustainability perspective. It's hard to look at a number and say, that number means I'm in trouble later. But I can definitely do that with a heart rate number. And from a heart rate perspective, I'm like, if I see above 150, I'm like, I am in a bad spot right now. Whereas from a watt number, I guess to put it another way, I always overestimate from a wattage number what I can do. It's like I'm looking at like my portfolio and being like, imagine what this could do. This thing could do all crazy things. But then I also look at my bank balance and I'm like, ooh, protect, save, conserve, be cautious. But I'm over here, I'm like, let's roll, let's go aggressive. And I think for me,
you are borrowing a bike. Yeah, you are borrowing a bike for this one. So like you may have to do a little bit of depending on the technology on your bike, you may have to be doing this a bit old school. Like you'll be using heart rate and your breathing and your effort largely across this day, right? You got your power pedals.
Power pedals. Okay. Power pedals for the win. Right,
power pedals.
So power pedals and bringing my Wahoo up there.
Okay, good. Yeah. And then, so the only difference now would be like putting down watts on dirt is obviously that's more challenging than it is putting watts down on pavement. So there is a little bit of skew when depending on what surface you're on, whether, what your watts are going to look like. So don't freak out if the watts aren't where they are, but like heart rate and breathing and RPE are where they're supposed to be, right? But the watts are low. I wouldn't freak out just because the loose surface is just not going to give you the higher. You're just going to have higher numbers. Okay. You won't get the traction and stuff like that.
Got it. Okay. Notes made. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the episode where I hijack Matt for guidance on race execution and training. I love the idea of making money on the road. It sounds like I'm starting a band. I'll be saying that to myself as I'm out there suffering in a group of cyclists, imagining that I'm in the Tour documentary, but really just a oversized dude on a mountain bike crushing himself by 6 other people.
And there might be some other spots on the course where you can make some money, depending on what Withrow can tell you about where the other parts of the fire road are really good there too, right? So it might be dirt, but it also might be a section that there might be a really long section where you could link together fire road plus some road section and be like, hey, this 20-mile section right here, which on the mountain bike at 12 or 20 miles an hour is going to be an hour and a half worth of work or close to 2 hours.
No, that's a good point.
Right?
Even in earlier bike races in my career, that's where I've always, I don't do well in the dynamics. Like I can't anticipate, like I don't sense we're about to attack each other moment. Like everyone else is ready for that. I'm like, what just happened? We were great. The guys.
Oh, good.
So I've just been also because of triathlon and time trialing, I'm super good at being like, oh, like they're 2 minutes up the road. I'm now going to time trial at like upper zone 3 for 25 minutes and get back. I can totally do that. So it makes sense to use that superpower to get speed relative to the competition who's going to get. Most cyclists tend to go easier on those sections because they're like, I just crushed myself on that hard section. So they're not, my inverse understanding of the game could be an advantage at some point in time.
Yeah.
So.
And knowing where, if like you printed out like this, the ride with GPS file, and if you knew, yeah, I'm at the top of the climb and I know that I'm on dirt until mile 23, then 23 to 26 is going to be road. Like I think you need, rather than trying to memorize that, print that out and just tape that to your top tube. Then you know when the road sections are coming up and stuff like that based on where you are relative. That's an easy.
Or I can have an earpiece and you can yell at me in like Italian or French or do something. No? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. No, that's a good call. That's a good call. And I like that idea too of just breaking it down. I know my numbers, so really taking advantage of the course. Be interesting to see, in a multidisciplinary athlete's history, it's easy to fall into a pattern where you race on any race day according to those principles. And depending on how long the game is, that's a successful strategy, right? People use the 4 keys that we've come up with for race execution. For a triathlon, they use them for marathons. People use them at work. They use them everywhere. But when you're when you raise the bar from saying, "Hey, I want to be at my personal best," and you start saying, "Ooh, I want to tip the scales in my favor," if I'm strategically rolling the dice, I think when we start talking about the pointier end of racing, you start to get into conversation of how much of your day can you say, "I need to be making money." Like, where am I making money? Where do I want to do that? And factor that in. We all have some amount of making money on race day, but I think as you slide the scale towards performance options, placement, and stuff like that, the higher your ambitions are, the more strategic you need to be with how you're executing over the day. So this is super helpful. I appreciate that you walked me through finding places for opportunities, as opposed to saying, I know you can go 100%, Patrick, but if you could just go 175% here, that'd be great. So can you do that? Which is like the default option that most people bring on race day, which is I'm riding up a hill. For those of you on YouTube, here I am riding up a hill and everyone's riding away from me. So like my only option is to go harder. Whereas Make Money Patrick will be like, I'm going to let them go harder because it's mile 18. And I know that at mile 21, we hit that road section for 4 miles. I can afford to lose 90 seconds or 2 minutes to these people because I've got 4 miles of road. And I'll stay inside my zone so I can have a better day overall. This is my mountain biking camera. Here we go. Just put 2 hands here at the bottom. Okay.
And wait, if the course ever gets, you might have guys ride away from you because they have better skills going downhill or are willing to take more risk, right? And you're like, hey, I don't need to necessarily take that risk, and I don't want to because I'm going to make my money on the road or whatever. So I think that's something also to pay attention to. When you're riding with a group of folks and they want to take more risk on the trail than you do, you're like, okay, have at it.
Totally. And it's not appropriate to push other people off their bicycles. That's not appropriate. Okay.
Only if you're in the sprint for the Tour de France at the end and there's some pushing and shoving, apparently.
Exactly. That's the only other advantage that I have, both Withrow and I, not that we've talked about this, but we are both significantly larger than the average cyclist. So I'm like, just hypothetically say, I have an object my size at a similar speed to an object of a smaller size, I'm going to win that battle. So, no, I'm kidding.
I thought the deal was he was coming out to domestique you for this race. I thought that was part of the deal. I thought he was gonna pull you to be part of this race. Is that part of the?
No, I think he was gonna. No, he's not gonna pull me. He's like, you're too fit, which is just being nice. He's super strong and fit. He's like, you're going to go do your thing, and you should go do your thing. If you sit around and say, I'm going to ride with Withrow through the first 10 miles of this course, you're going to miss the break of everybody pushing on this climb. And that's the one climb you have to get right. Once you get over that thing at your best sustainable version of you, whatever that is, then ride your ride. If I catch you, awesome. If I don't catch you, awesome. But don't wait for me to get up that climb to then do it. He showed me like this, and because he's Withrow, the results across what it looked like. And you could see how that's a big separator, right? There's people who are good mountain bikers, but don't have fitness. So they'll make up time later. But in general, that's what most bike courses have, is that critical section that sort of divides the strongs versus the strong knots.
Spread everybody out. So it's typically a good mountain bike course or road course will have that climb at the beginning because they want to separate 600 people into a single file line. So climb is a great way to do that.
It is. I strangely have come to enjoy that. It's good. I think I keep telling myself like the butterflies in my stomach and the nerves that I have are just all good signs that I'm excited. So I'm looking forward to it. All right. So my last thing here for folks who did tune in for the Dude Guy episode, which I totally hijacked. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you got something out of it. Was just a strong takeaway about self-care. And I'm not talking about foam rolling or like more fiber in your diet. I just want to put a plug in for like excellent skincare, especially now being outside. Like, I don't know how you feel personally about global warming, but the sun, I do believe in the flat earth philosophy, is getting closer to earth because it's hot out there. And I don't think enough people think about sunscreen. So I hope, as a little PSA for everybody here, that when you do your weekend or your long ride routine, that part of your checklist, and we believe in checklist for those longer outdoor rides, involves sunscreen. And that we want to make sure that you're doing all that up before you go. And depending on how long you go, maybe having a little extra sunscreen for later on in the day in your ride. It makes a big difference in terms of just keeping you healthy and happy. It also, I believe, helps you recover better. Like when you're sunburned as an athlete and you're getting sunburned on a ride or a run or in a race, there's a cost associated with that in terms of perceived exertion, fatigue. It's a sign, like to me, of like things not going well. And if you can avoid that with just simply saying, oh yeah, that's right, sunscreen, I put it on, then do it. So put it on your checklist. My only feedback on that is people all of a sudden, because we're athletes, all of a sudden be like, but there's a spectrum of 250 sunscreen products, Patrick. Am I doing like the man sunscreen? Am I doing the child sunscreen? Am I doing the water sunscreen or the water surfing sunscreen or the dolphin? I spend most of my time underwater sunscreen. I don't really care which option that you choose. The key parts for me are that you can actually work it in pretty well. So if you put on your sunscreen and you turn white because you have sunscreen on, not very breathable and probably going to inhibit your ability to get some work done. So make sure you choose a sunscreen that you can use across your body. Not a fan of a face sunscreen and an arm sunscreen and then like a leg sunscreen. So get one you can use across your body, feel good. I usually go for SPF 30 is my go-to that I have. And then for wherever you are training, just remember, don't forget like the back of your neck and your ears, your hands. And I would also say like your legs, like your lower extremities. People think about face, they think about like shoulders, like they think about all the stuff that they can easily touch and see in a mirror. Face and shoulders and chest, I'm super good. And they forget that most of the time the sun's probably like behind you or next to you. Our extremities are exposed for sure. And while getting sunburned on your leg isn't necessarily a bad thing, it really messes up your sleep. It's just annoying as all get out. It's like a paper cut from the sun. So don't do that. Any thoughts or tips on sunscreen, Matt?
Oh man, I am very particular about my sunscreen. So yeah, I'm all about that. Yeah, so I'm all about that. So yeah, I have when my particular sunscreen, when we're traveling and I can't get it, then I get some other knockoff thing, and then like it sweats in my eyes. I'm a grumpy guy, so yeah, I'm all about the sunscreen. Yeah, typically. And, yeah, I think the biggest, like a double penalty. You get, not only do you get burned, but then the recovery is even harder because now your body's trying to recover.
Yes.
And now it's even more painful because, that side, wow. And especially like you said, if you're on your back, your leg or wherever it happens, then, it makes it more difficult to recover from. So yes. I'm all about it. It's it is part of it does make the whole getting ready to ride timeline a little bit longer, but like totally worth it.
It's totally worth the investment for sure. I agree 100%, especially when you're trying to stack days together, as most endurance athletes are. You're trying to remain consistent. It just looks good for me. I think overall it's just a good piece of hygiene. So I didn't want to just always talk about watts and heart rate and equipment. I think the most important piece of equipment you have is you. So making the decisions that keep you like optimized, healthy, happy, super good, which is important. Awesome. Thanks for my little PSA for sure. And thanks for this episode of Dude Guy. I did manage to steal yet another hour of your life, Matt. I can't believe it. Haha.
Always good.
Thanks for letting us do that. So by the time this publishes, I will have done my race and we'll be back with maybe
we'll get the debrief. That'll be awesome.
The debrief, and more. But to everyone else who's out there doing your thing, remember, don't be Dude Guy. Be smarter than that. Make the good decisions. Don't just do long rides. Taper. Be smart. Don't make money on the hard parts. Make money on the parts where you're good. And do not put sunscreen directly into your eyeballs. That's it from Dude Guy. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Sunscreen in the eye.
For more information about Endurance Nation, visit us online at endurancenation.us. The provided music is from the Podshow Podsafe Music Network. Check it out at music.podshow.com.